Hey everyone, that was the intro and solo to Jimi Hendrix's 2-minute 25-second masterpiece Little Wing from 1967's Axis Bold as Love album, coming in at a very well-deserving number 18 on Guitar World Magazine's Top 100 Solos of All Time. Little Wing is one of those rare beasts of a guitar track, whereas the solo is easier to play than the intro and the rhythm parts. It's tricky stuff, as you may well know if you've ever tried to play it. Now, I don't know if Little Wing is included on this list because of the solo itself, which is classic and great, or the more famous 30-second intro, one of the most famous 30 seconds of guitar ever recorded. I'd have to give it 70-30, intro over solo proper on this one. I mean, the intro is not really a solo per se, but it's solo guitar, and it's got solo-y bits in it, and plus it's iconic as hell. So there's that, plus it's hard as balls to play, so there's that as well. And like I said, it's more difficult to play than the actual solo itself in the song. So I included both, of course, with a little help from my sweet daughter, Charlotte, leading the way and helping me out on this one. Thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte, why in the hell did you stop playing guitar? You were getting so good. If any of you know my story, and I suppose by extension her story, Charlotte picked up guitar about 2 years ago at age 13 after discovering Van Halen, of all bands, and falling in love with lots of other classic rock bands, and decided that she wanted to learn how to play guitar. She was actually the sole catalyst for getting me playing again. So for that, I'm eternally grateful to her. You may know that I hadn't played guitar in about 25 years. I quit when I was like 28. So when she said that she wanted to learn how to play guitar, I told her that I would teach her. I bought her a guitar and I bought her an amp, and I dug out the one guitar that I had left from under the bed, and we got started. I gave her a couple of lessons a week to get her started on the basics, and she practiced damn hard and progressed really bloody fast. And lo and behold, in the process, I fell in love with the instrument all over again and started playing regularly again myself. Then, after about 7 or 8 months of lessons, she wanted to learn Little Wing, and I was a bit skeptical. It's tough for a beginner. Hell, it's tough for an experienced player to play Little Wing well and properly. But she was determined to learn it, and she practiced it relentlessly once I taught her how to play it. She eventually got it down and played it beautifully, even getting her thumb over the top for all the bass notes, which impressed me to no end. I didn't even teach her that. I taught her it straight up, and she did that on her own. And then basically proceeded to quit playing guitar altogether shortly after that, much to my disappointment. Teenagers, like after about a year of lessons and a ton of hard work, she was playing at a level that most players would achieve after like 3 or 4 years. She was a real natural at it. And then she's like, okay, I've had enough of this guitar business, time to draw. And then she started drawing all the time instead. So, like I said, it's been nearly 2 years. It's 2 years later, and she barely plays anymore. But I knew that Little Wing was one of the things that she still practiced once in a while when the mood struck her to pick up a guitar. So I thought I'd ask her to join me for this video, and thankfully she accepted. Again, thank you, Charlotte. Was a real treat to be playing together again with our little father-daughter guitar bonding thing, even if we did record our parts separately at the time. Speaking of which, that was actually kind of tricky. Because we don't play it the exact same way. So I recorded her first, and I basically had to sit down and try to copy her playing and match her timing and phrasing as close as I could after the fact. So that said, this is pretty much her. This is pretty much her rendition of the intro with me just doubling her take. But, I want it in. It's Little Wing, it's my channel, and I taught her how to play the bloody thing, so... It was actually kind of funny when she recorded it. I had her all set up at my little workstation with the headphones on and everything, and after a number of takes, not getting it right, she pulled the headphones off and just played it without amplification the way she always does. And within like 2 takes, she put down a really good take. And then she left and went to draw or something. And then I sat down and I worked on the tone, and I put down my part, doubled up her part, added the glockenspiel chimes and recorded the solo and mixed it all together. And about 2 hours later, I told her to come and give it a listen. And she put the headphones on and she's like, "What the hell is that?" I'm like, "That's you and a bit of me." But she was blown away by how good it all sounded, pieced together with proper tone and reverb and effects and whatnot. You did well, Charlotte. You did very well. Now on to a bit about Little Wing. Little Wing has its roots back in 1966 with a track called "My Girl, She's a Fox" by a band called the Icemen. Before Jimmy became famous in his own right, he was pretty much a hired gun by a lot of different bands looking for a good blues R&B player to put down tracks on their recordings in the studio. With this track by the Icemen, Jimmy was trying his best at the time to channel Curtis Mayfield's guitar style, in which he tended to add little licks and fills within the chordal structures of his rhythm playing. Very much a rhythm and blues kind of technique. These days Curtis Mayfield is more well known as a singer, songwriter, producer, and not so much for his guitar playing or as a soloist. He didn't solo very much, but he had a major influence on the young Jimi Hendrix. Probably his greatest influence, according to Jimmy himself, and one you can really hear come out in something like Little Wing. If you listen to "My Girl, She's a Fox," you can hear touches of what Little Wing would eventually become. But on the whole, the two songs sound nothing alike, at least to my ear. It's what's going on underneath the music in Jimmy's playing that's key here, I think. Jimmy would work these riffs over the following year or two until it was something that he was happy with and create what would eventually become Little Wing. One of the few tracks from Axis Bold of Love that Jimmy was 100% happy with. Little Wing and Spanish Castle Magic being the only two songs that he played regularly live in concert from this album going forward for the next 3 years. Why he wasn't happy with Castles Made of Sand is beyond me. That's a Stone Cold Jimmy classic, one of my favorite Jimmy songs. Maybe it was because Jimmy actually left the finished master tracks to Axis Bold of Love in a taxi, never to be recovered. So it was a bit of a rush job to get the entire album remixed before its release. So maybe that's why he wasn't happy with it overall. Nowadays, it's generally considered a masterpiece, but as he only released 3 studio albums in his lifetime, I think it's still considered the least focused of the 3. But of course, we're talking relative here. All 3 of Hendrix's studio albums are masterpieces. But if, Jimmy thought it was his weakest album, that's good enough for me, I guess. But still, it's got Little Wing, Spanish Castle Magic, and Castles Made of Sand, Bold as Love, If 16 Was 9, all great tracks. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about that one. Would just like to thank my good friend Sean for loaning me another guitar from his stellar collection, this absolutely gorgeous limited edition American Stratocaster with a rosewood neck. Now, when I say it's got a rosewood neck, I don't mean a rosewood fretboard. The whole neck is rosewood, including the headstock. It's an absolutely beautiful guitar. I only dropped it 3 times this time, Sean, but all the duct tape is in the back, so you can't see it. And if you hold it just like this and you hold the selector switch a little bit like that, it still plays just fine. And it caught on fire once. So, it's Jimmy, of course. So, anyway, thank you. It's fine, Sean. Look, it's fine. No duct tape. Anyway, just want to thank you guys for checking this out as usual. Thank you to Charlotte for helping me out on this one. Hope all is well in your little guitar corner of the world. And we'll see you next week. Maybe 2 weeks. I've got Cliffs of Dover coming up. I could play it about 2 years ago, but I've completely forgotten it. So I have to relearn it. And that's going to take me more than a week, I think. So you guys take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time. Ciao.